So you asked about the tabs. So that was my story is PDR technician try to learn by myself. I didn't have Learn PDR online, so I failed by myself. I had Learn PDR from a VHS tape.
Yep.
But I got close enough that I understood the basics of it.
This was the start for you into getting into PDR.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I got excited about it. I happened to buy decent tools at that time, not the best tools, but they were good enough to work with. I still have some 28 years later. And I got excited, so I got hired on as an employee to a dent repair company, worked for them for 4 or 5 years. That owner sold. I didn't really like the new owner that much, and then I decided to go out on my own and did that I'm still doing that. But maybe, well, I guess I could give you like the deeper reason why the tabs exist. Number one, I'm trying to solve problems that I have as a technician. I just like solving problems. You know, do you guys know the show MacGyver in England?
Yeah, yeah.
Right, that's like an adjective now. You can MacGyver something, but that was kind of my mindset. I'm not as talented as the TV character, but I like to figure things out and work with my hands and kind of come up with solutions. And I think a lot of successful PDR guys have that in common.
Problem solver.
You have to be a problem solver when you've taken apart something you've never taken apart. But we had this problem with glue tabs. But before we got to that, I'm working by myself and I'm doing okay, but still working with my hands and looking into the future. I thought, gosh, how long can I work with my hands? I'm only 22, but there's a pretty hard horizon on manual labor. And I don't know if it's 52 or 62. When you're 22, 52 seems really far away. And I thought, I don't know if I can do this forever. Maybe I should get into something else. The mortgage business was going crazy here at that point, and people were making money hand over fist as mortgage brokers, when really all they were doing is just taking orders, because the phones were ringing off the hook and they were just plugging people into a computer and making, $5,000 or $8,000 per customer.
Yeah.
So they were hood rich. And I thought maybe I should do that, and maybe I should get into something else. That seems nicer, working from a desk, making money on a computer, than being out here working on cars. But I thought, well, I'd have to learn something all over from scratch. I don't know anything about that business, and I'm already operating at an expert level in this business. Why don't I just focus on this? I'll have basically a 2-year head start if I were to switch something else. So I said, okay, I'll do this, and I'll consciously look for other ways that I can monetize the skill set that I do have. Whether it be training or developing tools. Like, I really know this trade, so I think I can bring value in other ways than just fixing cars. Employing more people in the company, etc. I kind of look at it as I have a crescent wrench, but what can I do with it? I can do all kinds of nuts and bolts, but I could also pry things with it. I can hit people with it. There's a lot of creative things I could do with a crescent wrench. So then when I wanted a tool that didn't exist, I thought, I'm going to develop this tool and then maybe see if I can develop more. So that's the first generation of Black Plague crease tabs. This is the little one, but there was the big giant ones, you remember?
Yeah, you had a few in a kit, didn't you? Like a set. Was it 4 or 5 of them together?
Yeah. And this one still works amazing. People kind of forget about it because it's old, and I don't even think they're in production anymore. We were talking about bringing them back, but in the screen material. But believe it or not, there was a time when there was no crease tabs.
Right, yeah.
Everything was it's like some kind of oval similar to this profile or round. And they weren't small like this.
Yeah.
Right. What I'm holding for people just listening is a 12 millimeter gangrene tab and a 9 millimeter gangrene tab. And the original Black Plague crease tab with a 1 bolt in it. That's like the size of a Sharpie. But there were no crease tabs. The guys would cut the Worth oval tabs down and make a crease tab.
I'd forgotten that I ever did that. But yeah, I started off with all the Worth tabs.
And it worked okay. Those were amazing products. For being the first product to a market, as far as I know, they were amazing. Still very good. I mean, now that you know how to glue pull, you'd probably be amazed at what you could do with a set of Worth tabs, because you're a little more creative. You understand the set times and the pressures and everything. But
That's true. I must admit, I've never gone back to my Worth tabs since going on to
nor
other,
have I, but I
tabs.
bet if I just gave you a set of Worth tabs, you could do a good repair still.
Yeah, with a better understanding of the process.
Yeah, they were nice, but there was no crease tab, so I came up with this whole set of different crease tabs, and they worked really well. And it was fun, and I got to share them with all my friends online around the world, and that was the origin for Black Plague tabs. The name comes from one of my technicians was a really talented comic artist. Like his style is like comic book drawing, so he'd always make really neat caricatures, and we'd kind of have fun with it. And I thought, oh, we got these tabs, I have to give them a name, and I like somewhat unique names, but I don't want them to be called Pro Dent or, you know,
yeah, like a generic,
some generic name, because I spent my whole career as a dent repair technician with people calling me Dent Wizard and Dent Pro, of which I was neither.
Yeah.
Because it's just a generic name.
Yeah, you do. I get called that all the time, Dent Master or Dent Wizard, and
right.
Yeah, technically, but
it's one of the reasons my name doesn't start with Dent, Bullseye. I like the name because you can think of you think you've seen the logo before you've ever seen the logo, because everyone knows what a bullseye looks like.
That's true.
So he was using the product, the tabs, and he goes, "These are like crease killers." I'm like, and he goes, "But they're black. You know, like the Black Plague was a killer." He's like, and rats carried the Black Plague, so he made this awful dead rat with the bolt out of its back.
Oh, that's what it started from, with a logo.
Yeah, and I thought that is outrageous and awful and hilarious, and I'm going to use it, because once you see that rat, you can't forget it.
You don't forget it. Yeah.
In fact, we were talking about it with a Russian PDR tool manufacturer, the guy from CarePoint Tools, name's Vitaly.
Oh, yeah.
And he said the term dead rat in Russian just sounds like awful and abrasive, but they kind of like it. They're like, I need it, give me a dead rat. They like it.
It's different, like you say, putting bullseye in front of the dent repair. It's something different, it's something familiar. But yeah, it's just stay in your brain. I remember you said about the spelling of Black Plague, which is why you then also had it as dead rat tabs.
Yeah, because I probably didn't even know how to spell plague. It's not a normal word you use. Maybe you guys use it more, referencing the plague.
Not so much, but
I was thinking, I wonder if this is offensive to people who actually have, 100-year family histories from the Black Plague.
I'm sure somebody will be offended somewhere.
Back then, I don't think anybody was.
No.
So then from that tab, it went to a full line of round tabs and crease tabs in a gray material.
What changed between, because they're two very different shapes.
Totally
so the original
different.
Black one having a very curve on it versus like the flat, smooth series crease tab.
These crease tabs, although there was no crease tabs before, it still is very conventional in the idea of how it's hooking to the car and what you're doing with it. I used a bolt instead of a plastic molded in head. That's a little different, but I didn't want any flex there. I wanted the bolt to pull hard. And this crease that's down the center of it, it isn't there for adhesion. It's there for putting the glue gun into the crack and running it down.
Ah, okay.
So it's perfectly straight. Because in testing, I learned that a glue tab will only pull the shape of the glue that's on it.
Yes,
which
I remember hearing that from you as well.
It's common sense when you think about it, but you don't usually think about it.
So if you took a rectangle tab, it's going to give me a rectangle pull. Or
if you fill the glue all the way out to the edges. But if you went up and put an S shape on this big oval tab and put it down lightly and pulled it, it's not going to pull in the areas where there's no glue. It's going to pull that S pattern. So for a crease tab, it needs to be as straight as possible. So I added this strip so that you could notch the glue nozzle into it and run it perfectly down, because it's hard to stay on a round surface.
Yeah, for sure.
So that was the origin of that. After that, I started thinking about, why are all these other tabs patterned with checkers and dots and dimples? And I started meeting a few of the people behind the tab companies, and I realized it's a relatively new invention. Nobody quite knows why they're doing these patterns. They're just making patterns because they all have patterns. the thinking was more surface area on the tab will make it adhere better. And more surface area might work well in some applications, but with what we're doing, they just invited air and dirt into the glue, between the glue and the tab.
Oh, okay, yeah, I hadn't thought of that. Because, yeah, well, I remember starting off with those first Werf tabs, and they didn't, because when I first tried glue pulling, it didn't work. And I thought it was a gimmick. I was like, this doesn't work. I threw the tabs and went back to pushing my bars. It didn't pull anything. And then somebody said, oh, you need to scuff up the tabs and rough them up either with a Stanley blade or just on the kind of pavement. And then once they're torn up a little bit, then they adhere, which they did to a degree. But that's when it was confusing from that logic. That's why I assumed that they all had checkers on, or textures, or spirals, and that kind of thing for adhesion. And so when seeing the Smooth series come out, I was thinking, well, how can that work? It's smooth.
Right.
Again, it's thinking outside the box, thinking differently.
So there's an experiment. This is going to be a video, right? Link right here to the Black Plague video when I did an experiment of a clear piece of plexiglass, and I pushed the tabs onto it from the other side. So now you could see the pattern of adhesion that it was making with the glue. And the tabs were domed. That was the other realization I had, is that I didn't know how deep of dents we were fixing. You just look at them and you say they're deep. How deep is it? No, none of us know. So I came up with a depth gauge to measure the depth. It was helpful in understanding how deep dents actually are that are stretched and that are not stretched. And the big takeaway from that is they're not very deep at all. Like a dent that's actually somewhat challenging to fix but not stretched at all, 0.8 to 0.9 or 1 millimeter deep.
Oh, wow.
1 millimeter.
Yeah.
It's like hard to show you a millimeter. But that's as deep as it is. Your eyes tell you a different story. When you look at it, you swear.
Catch all the reflections and it stands out.
Yeah, you and I would both swear it's a lot deeper than that. But when you measure it, that's all it is. But when you look at these tabs, they have these exaggerated domes that if that was the shape of your dent, it would be unfixable. Way too deep. So if I were only fixing dents that are 1 to 1.5 millimeters deep, I don't need a domed tab, and I don't want any kind of a pattern interrupting my glue pattern. So those domed tabs, when I put them on the plexiglass and you push them down, they squirt all the glue out in front of the protruding pieces, and the glue recedes back into the crevices, and it's very inconsistent in the patterns. So that's why they'll pull hard once and then they won't pull it all the second time, and it changes based on the dents. So that was my realization that I needed to reinvent the face of the tab, get rid of all that shape and get rid of all that pattern, and just make sure the glue has a nice perfect surface to adhere to. I'm sure you in your life you've played with like 2 pieces of glass when you're in school, like for a microscope, and you put 1 drop of water in between them and you can't separate them.
Yeah.
Right? The surface tension is so strong. It's not a glue at all, but it might as well be glued
Just that, that
together,
section,
right?
Yeah.
So you're getting a similar result with a tab that's flat, because the dent, even though it's dented, is almost flat. It just looks dented. So the glue will make up the difference in the dent to the flat face of the tab, and you have no protruding pieces or dirt or air poisoning your seal between the tab and the car.
So the glue fills the void rather than having to have a tab that's the right shape for it.
Correct.
Perfectly, certainly in terms of depth. Then the glue's doing that job. It's filling in all the gaps as you put that pressure on, isn't it?
And it works amazing. Right, we all figured that out. Pretty much every leading tab now is dead flat. Yeah. And I didn't patent it.
I was going to ask you, because you were the start of the Smooth series tabs, as far as I'm aware of seeing smooth tabs.
To be fair, there were smooth tabs before. Blem had some, which worked awesome. They were little red crease tabs. They were smooth. And Ultra had some that they turned on a lathe. I had never seen them, but I did find out later they existed.
Yeah,
but
the concept of going through the smooth.
Never heard of them, never seen them, but they were there. But none of those were flat.
Oh,
they were all domed.
Still, so smooth, but still, domed to fit a dent.
Yeah. So anyways, that was the that's the origin of the company. Then next came the smooth flat tabs, which everyone really liked. They were great. And we came out with some bigger crease tabs that were strong and beefy. With creases, you're trying to impose your will to the panel, so you want the shape to remain rigid so you can tell it where to go. So the crease tabs we have are pretty rigid. And then one of the complaints from these, Tom, was that when I drop them, I can't find them.
Oh, the grey workshop floor scenario.
They're the color of the floor, they're the color of the road, and they hide. So someone gave me the idea, like a high visibility color would be more valuable, and I thought, that is a good idea. So we came out with the gangrene tabs.
The highest visibility color you could find, probably.
Yeah, and I love it. I love the color. So then we came out with some smaller round tabs. I'd like it. Probably when I came out with these crease tabs, this is the gangrene 9mm tab. I didn't even think something this small would work.
Yeah.
You know, when people saw them first, they thought, there's no way that works.
Not going to pull, no.
I can't pull anything. It pulls really well. Now the market has continued to evolve, and a tab this big would have a much skinnier neck. This neck is overbuilt, but they don't ever break. They're like virtually
they don't stretch those ones,
unbreakable.
But it still gives a nice solid pull, that thicker neck on it.
Yeah, they're still really good, just there's different options. I always, there isn't one set of tabs that is enough. They're so cheap in comparison to what we do that you really should have everything.
Yeah.
Because any slight difference in depth, shape, location, if you have a tab that's just slightly different, you want the one that fits perfectly, even if it's not a Black Plague tab. We have a lot of options, but like it's a good example right here, Tom. This is a 9, 12, and 15mm tabs. There's only a few millimeters between them. Completely different applications for those three.
Very different, yeah.
So different. The 15 there on the desk is the black ice material. That's the Kiko translucent blue material with our mold. Super strong tab. It's different material than the gangrene. The gangrene tab material is a little more pliable, and that blue stuff is really...
the actual material itself is different as
completely different material. And that blue stuff...
I feel the difference using them. I can feel that they've got a different pull or a different... I obviously don't know the science behind it or the material or why it feels different. But even on a small scale, lightly pulling, you can... this pulls hard, this pulls different.
Yeah, it's completely different. And it's basically almost no flex in the blue material, whereas the green is meant to flex and absorb some shock. So completely different.
It's amazing what you say about the different size, albeit a millimeter or so between the different ones, or perhaps a different material. Sometimes I'm looking at a dent and I almost know the tab that I want to use for it.
Right.
Try it, and if after a few pulls it's not giving me what I want, then I'll just instantly go up one or down one, or even just the same size but a different material.
Right.
And it's such a slight tweak or slight difference, but again you get a different pull or a different technique on it.
Yeah, you have to have a lot of different tabs, and you have to use them a lot to know what they do and what they don't know, what they don't do, and to understand how to use them. So it just continued to evolve from that point. Different shapes and different sizes. And we came out with the square tabs at some point, and people asked me, "What's the point of it? Does it pull a square?" Like, well, no, it can't. It can't pull a square.
Pull a square, yeah.
But the point of it is that a square, at its shortest measurement, say that one is 20 millimeters. When you compare a 20mm square to a 20mm circle, the square has 25% more surface area.
That's crazy, isn't it?
It is crazy. I didn't think the math was right, but it is. So that's what still is confined to a 20mm width now has 25% more surface area. So it can pull in the same area harder than a round tab.
So it gives another option in between the next size up
exactly.
of the round tab.
Exactly.
The same size tab square to give you more coverage.
Yeah, or if you're close up to an edge, you can go right up to it with the square without leading off. Because to get a round tab next to the corner, you have to come inside the edge a little bit to get it to stick, right? If you even a millimeter of the tab lifting over the edge of the panel, then it won't stick.
Yeah.
But with the square, you can get closer, right up to the edge, and get all that surface area and get a better pull out of it. Yeah. And then we introduced tab weld glue somewhere in between the Smooth Series and the gangrene, and that's been fantastic glue. There's now 25 other glues, if not more than that, And there's still some great other options for different scenarios, but tab weld is still the go-to glue.
Popular ones.
Yeah, for all the guys in my shop. We have every glue. I sell all the other glues, so we have them all out there.
Yeah.
They still just like tab weld because
I'll
it's
put links
consistent.
up for the products and glues and stuff as we go as well, because it's good stuff. I've used it myself, which is why we're here.
Yeah, the UK techs famously were very slow to adopt PDR glue. They didn't want to buy them as a market. It was too expensive for
Glue
them.
pulling in
Glue,
general,
just
or
the glue.
Just the glue.
They were using whatever glue you get from Aldi or whatever,
Yeah.
and getting okay results with it. You can get 80% of the results with glue pulling with any glue, like any glue from Walmart. But if you want 100%, it's best to use a specialized.
That extra pull. Plus, it's the way it releases off the panel as well. If
Yeah.
you're using, because I've tried all sorts of glues as well, like the cheap stuff, household craft glue. But the way it's brittle and doesn't peel off the panel very nicely makes a big difference as well.
It does. If you take the time to learn all the properties of whatever glue, you can do okay with it. But you will never do as great as a specialized glue. But
Right
you'll
tab,
save a lot
the
of
right
money.
glue. Yeah.
You might pull something 3 times to get the same result, but they're a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
So it does work, but it's more about you have to take the time to really study and learn the temperatures, measure the panel, measure the tabs, measure the glue temperatures.
Those things, again, it's something I learned later on. It was always trial and error. Just sometimes it worked, sometimes it doesn't work. And as you said, the more you learn, the more you realise there's a set temperature or an ideal temperature.
Right.
And then again, you've got the different tab choices, the different glue choices, but then the environment that you're in with moisture and just the climate, how cold the panel is, how cold the tabs are, how well it's prepared on the surface and on the tab. There's so many variables with glue. But when you do get it there, it works really well, and it's a really quick way to fix dents.
Yeah, it works really well, but you have to take the time to be conscious of all those things. If you're not, like if you buy 4 different glues and you just keep trying them all, none of them are gonna work for you. Because it's too many variables moving around. It's like spinning 4 dials on a combination lock and trying to get it randomly. You have to eliminate variables, and you stick with one glue and start learning when it works and when it doesn't, and then adjust the times and temperatures until it starts working. And then once you understand that, you can learn another one. But once you've got it to that point, it doesn't matter what glue it is, you're going to be able to fix almost everything.